Are these stats robust enough to say this is a sharp rise in knife crime now?
Well, you have to understand about the stats that what we do is to count the number of times that an officer who records a substantive offence of violence, usually, remembers to put a tick in the box saying a knife was involved. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, and sometimes there's more pressure on them to remember to put the tick in the box.
More pressure on them how?
Well, knife crime becomes a crisis, or when forces are looking to claim that they've got a major problem of knife crime and therefore need new resources.
Wait, so they might be ticking the box as a cry for help, saying, come in and help us with more money, or...?
Well, it's hit and miss whether officers remember to do it. They do it more with gun crime, I think, because gun crime is far less common and far more serious. So I think there's more consistency over putting a flag in a box where a gun is used. Knife crime, there's far more of it. And this sort of hit and missness, if their bosses are on their back saying, you must make sure you do it, they're more likely to do it. And then when the pressure is off, sometimes, well, you know, was it really used? Was it really a knife? Some officers will go one way about ticking the box, some will go another way.
Sheldon.
So, you know, the stats we have to be a bit careful of, but I do think there is an underlying problem, and I think I know some of the factors involved, but they're different in the Met from what they are in other forces.
Sheldon, to you, how would you explain it? You've been in gangs, you talk about gangs, you know how they operate. Is that at the heart of this, or are we missing something absolutely major by talking about gangs?
Not really. I mean, first we have to acknowledge how stats work. They only go by, as Dr Fitzgerald said, by actual police counting figures. A lot of young men do not go to the hospital who get stabbed. So the figures are going to most probably be a lot higher. So we are at crisis point in not just the capital, throughout this country in terms of knife crime. Is gangs at the centre of it all? Well, they were to begin with, and I would say at the moment it's become a culture. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's not only a culture amongst young people to carry knives. It's like...
What do you mean by that? I mean, how many kids do you know... How many kids in London, for example, would carry a knife each time they left the house?
Well, I couldn't put a figure in it, but I would say a lot of the kids growing up in particular areas, in particular deprived areas, would definitely carry a knife out of fear. Of not
during the daytime?
Well, yeah, because it's fear of not wanting to be a part of the gang, so they carry it in case they get bullied or intimidated. And the other part will be, it's become a culture because of the music they listen to. A lot of these guys are listening to music that promote that lifestyle, promote this kind of gangster image. And so it's about, I've got my knife, I've got my weed or drugs, and that's part of their lifestyle.
How much do you think stop and search has played a part in this, either negative or positive?
Well, I think Sheldon's made a very important point about... I mean, the first thing we've got to do is to take young people's fears seriously, because young people generally have been demonised in this, and a lot of kids in very serious violent areas, and a lot of the violence going on between adults, guns going off and so on. There is a hard core of young people, and they know who they are, that they are very, very frightened of. And I've had very experienced police officers saying to me, don't tell them that they're safer to go out there into those streets, in those sorts of areas, without anything to protect themselves, because they will laugh at you. They're far more scared of being found by that hardcore of young people who won't scruple.
So are the police officers saying that they should be carrying weapons?
No, they're not. But we need to understand that, as one officer said to me, they're far more frightened of that hardcore of seriously violent people, be they adults or other children, who would stop at nothing if they have nothing to protect themselves. The danger of this, and they're more scared of them than they are of getting nicked by the old bill. That's what one of them said to me.
But this is a normalisation of something that is inconceivable. And if we're now talking about the numbers...
It's inconceivable for middle classes. I'm sorry.
Is it rising or is it not?
No, it is rising. There's no dispute about the rising. What we're discussing here is why are young people carrying knives? And we have to discuss the fear. We have to discuss social factors. We have to look at these guys who carry weapons are more scared of the gang members or more scared of people who are very violent and very confrontational than they are of the law. And this idea of going around telling people don't carry a knife, don't carry a gun is ludicrous, because we don't live where they live. Can you imagine growing up on an estate where 70% of the people on that estate have no father figures, mass unemployment, mums are struggling, kids are growing up and there's gangs everywhere. These are the lives. And these kids, some of these kids, to get to school, has to take 6 or 7 buses round to get to a school just to avoid maybe a gang member or maybe a young person. We've got to understand the lives they are in. They're in a parallel universe that doesn't run along our side.
And you've got to
Okay,
understand you've got a
Thank you both.
hardcore of people that you really need to target instead of taking a scattergun approach to all young people who are frightened and trying to protect themselves, their little brothers and sisters and their mums. And unless you bring them on side and take out the people they're frightened of, you're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you very much. Thank you.